Main menu. This device uses a primarily black background theme because with AMOLED displays, each pixel generates its own light, so there's no need for backlight, so you get really true blacks on this. And the upside of that is you also, whenever there's black, it requires no extra power, so you get better battery life if you're using a primarily black theme like this. You can see it's a very pretty looking device. Here's the main menu. Scrolling is fairly smooth. Frame rate's still not as good, and it seems like this device could use a little bit more CPU power. I can't always keep up. There's some other Samsung devices that do a better job, but still pretty decent to work with in general. I'm going to activate the camera by holding down the shutter button for a second. Camera makes use of the capacitive touchscreen quite nicely for all sorts of controls. Easy to configure the flash, change exposure, some different scene modes. There's even smile shots, so when you focus on the person, you press the button, it doesn't take the picture until they smile. Frames, panoramic mode, all sorts of things. You can of course also switch into video mode. Here's the settings. Settings aren't quite as nicely organized. It takes a couple more taps to get things done than it probably ought to. One too many OK buttons have to be pressed, things like that. In general, it works pretty well though. It's organized, you can get things done, and you're not going to be in here too often anyway. Take a picture by pressing the shutter button partially. You get focus, little indicator in the center of the screen turns green. Press it all the way to take the photo. And by default there's no auto review because this device seems to run really, really slowly when auto review is on. But when you do want to look at the photos, you just press the button down here to get into the gallery. And again, you'll notice there's some CPU issues. While things come up, some things come up nicely. Sometimes the scrolling gets overwhelmed, and you can see it starts getting a little choppy and a little more difficult to use. It just seems like it needs more CPU to get through things. Back button takes us back to the camera. Now this is an 8 megapixel camera and it takes really fine photos. Sometimes it's a little slow in operation, maybe the focus isn't as exact as it ought to be, but in general I've been very, very pleased with it. Camcorder mode is very nice as well. You can take some nice high resolution videos. It's no HD, but you can get as high as 720 by 480 widescreen view, which is pretty slick. There's multiple ways to look at your photos. Easiest to go into the My Files. It's a typical file browser kind of system. You can see by default it comes up in a list mode. If you tap this little control here, it'll go into a grid of thumbnails though. There is a more interesting way to look at your photos as well, but again it seems to be kind of CPU constrained. So the photo browser here organizes by date and does it in a landscape format. So you can see right now it says March. If I can grab this, you can switch through different months, and you can see this is the stuff we just did now in April. Scroll backwards, and sometimes the thumbnails don't get generated properly. You can see it's very jagged. If I move in closely, you might be able to see that. Works, but it doesn't work as perfectly as it probably should. It just needs more CPU power to keep up with what's going on. And you can see an example right there how pixelated it is. It just hasn't generated the image yet. Got the web browser loaded right now. This is the mobile version of the MobileBurn homepage. You can see scrolling just by dragging. It's nice smooth animations. Also works in landscape mode because of the rotation sensor. You see this little indicator down here in the bottom corner. If I tap on that, it brings up the controls so I can see what's going on. You can go through and you can look at history, change URLs, whatever you want to do like that. Favorites. We're going to pull up the non-mobile version of the MobileBurn site. It's going to take quite a while to load though because this is a edge connection. Even though it's a 3G device, it just doesn't support 3G in the United States. I've got the full version of the MobileBurn web page pulled up right now, and I'm going to go into full screen mode by tapping on this control. And we're going to switch over to landscape mode just so you can see how well it handled the rendering job. You can see it looks pretty accurate. Now we're going to zoom out a bit using the volume control. And you can see it's not a great way for zooming. The control's a little a little slow, and it's not nearly as simple as just being able to double tap on something, which some of the other devices Samsung makes allow for. But you can see the rendering quality is quite good in terms of the layout. Everything is really the way it's supposed to be. You can see that we select a link, tapping it once, and tap it again to activate it. You hear the little beep, and there's a little haptic feedback there, and you can see the data indicator up top showing that we're downloading data now. So it's a pretty good browser. Definitely need a 3G connection for it, though. This Edge connection really is the pits when it comes to web surfing on this thing. But nice browser overall. We just wish that it had more intelligent zooming controls rather than having to rely on the volume control.